Hello watchers and welcome to episode 3 of Ink With Me. If you remember last episode, or if you didn't watch last episode, that I'll leave a link in the cards above. We did a whole bunch of mark making just to get you familiarised with the dip pen and some straight lines as well, and realising that straight lines are uninteresting. Some different line types, and then we eventually got to some basic shapes and then created a skyline as well, just from using the techniques that we'd done. So in this episode, I think we're gonna, we're gonna do some hatching and cross hatching, and touch upon tone and value, with a smidgen of colour, and also touch a little bit on perspective, making something 3D. So let's dive right in. Now these on-screen examples are constant tone, where you're just using the same line thickness and trying to keep it as uniform as possible but in different directions, which does create hatching in a sense. The next one is showing that if you use a heavy hand and then get gradually lighter in any direction, that also gives a tonal value to your lines. And then also going from dense to sparse, it also creates an even richer tone value by just simply putting the lines closer together. So let's give that a whirl on here. So again, I'm just using my Liquitex carbon black ink. And then we're just gonna sort of go darkest all the way to the lightest using just the lines. Someone asked me before in the previous episode, can you do this with just a normal ink pen? And yeah, you can. But I just want to learn how to do it with the dip pen and get used to being able to press hard and get thick lines and then go back soft. Whereas I know you can do it with some not brush pens. Well, you can do it with brush pens, but you can do it with some ink pens as well. But I just want to try and do it the traditional way and see how we get on. You can also do this digitally as well. It doesn't have to be this way. It's just this is where my own sort of curiosity has taken me. So you can see, even just doing lines, you can build up a variation tone. And on the camera it looks, on side camera it looks quite dramatic. The other thing as well is covering large areas. So one way to do it is just simply going diagonal and filling in the area with diagonal lines. But a trick I've learned to do is do them quite wide, so then you get the spatial thing quite right between them, but at the same time you don't want them too uniformed. And then once you've got the right sort of direction you're going in with these, you can then go back and go in between the lines to build up more texture. The other way to cover a large area is doing lots of little lines. In different directions, which in itself creates another pattern. But even though I'm doing this quite quickly, you can see how much it's building up a pattern, a texture that you wouldn't normally get from just doing the straight lines. But by doing it quickly as well, it builds up a different character than trying to meticulously do it like a machine. Next thing we can do is cross hatching. Now, the ones I'm showing you on the overlay, first of all, with cross hatching, you don't want to go down, down, cross, cross, because it looks too much like a grid formation, and it can look not very nice. So it's always best to try and make diamond shapes as opposed to squares. So it's best to go down, then do a diagonal cross. And then, or you can go diagonal, 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 and then you can also do the same with a slight curved line. And obviously, the thicker you start at the bottom and then go up, it creates another tonal value. So let's give that a go here. And again, you can see how I'm just going really fine with the squares, diamond shapes, and then getting larger creates more light in space. So let's try and do that in a continuous sort of line. In this way, I'm going to go straight down first. And so as you can see, the more dense you make the lines, the more depth you get. Moving on to using some other techniques to create sort of cross-hatching rather than just using lines. Well, you still use lines, but not in the sort of diagonal straight line. So I suppose the first one would be contour lines. So to create sort of contours in depth on things, and to make things look round. So even just doing simple lines like that, you can already start and see the roundness. And then the more you fill out the shape with more denser lines, now the next one is just simply dots, lots and lots of dots, which some people call pointillism and some people call it stippling. So use whatever one you want. As you can tell, stippling takes a lot longer than any other hatching so far. But you do have, I think, you have more control of where you want the darker parts and then the lighter parts. Okay, so you can see how you can build up tone with that. The other technique that I quite enjoy is just simply scribbling, and it is so fast and effective. And then also you can build up tone in the value with this as well. That's almost filled it in. See how quick that was compared to stippling, but it depends on the effect you're going for and what texture you're trying to create as well. Now the other thing is wavy lines. This is a really good technique because this, for architectural, it creates like wood grain. It can also do marble, even concrete in some respects, depending on what effect you're going for. And again, you can build up the depth and things with wavy lines as well. And it's simply like before with the straight lines, it's just you build lines closer together. But the thing is, you don't have to like do it in one direction, like under one part like here. You can just do it all over. Again, depending on what you're going for, because if this was a wood grain, I'd be building up the different grains in the wood. That's another way of doing it. So let me just name these before I forget them. So the other way of building up lines and texture is simply by contrast of value, as shown in this example, using pen and ink. Contrast of texture as well. You can do straight lines with a lot of scribbling or wavy lines at the bottom. Line direction as well for different line variations. Nib size as well, you can mess around with the nib sizes. And then obviously adding colour as well, that always sends off a different variation. Now, going back to the sketchbook. Okay, so the next exercise I'm going to do is back to shapes, simple shapes. But this time we're going to make them 3D. So the first being a square, and pulling him out in this direction. Then a circle. I think the best way to make a circle look 3D is just by adding a little bit of contour lines. And then we'll do a triangle. And then pull that out as well, like we did with the square. Running out of ink. Ooh. My first splash of the day. Top tip, always have tissue around when you're playing with ink. And also don't have that much ink on your pen. And then a rectangle. Which again we can pull out just a little because I'm running out of page. Now what we can do to sort of show shadow, just add some lines to the outers. Let's do that again, shall we? And then also I'm going to add just a little bit of a shadow. And then we do the same for the circle. And then add loosely a little bit of shadow. Leave it to dry for a little while. Now we're going to add just a tad bit of colour. I'm using transparent burnt sienna. And I'm going to use a paintbrush. I'm just using a Princeton Glacier round tip number 2. And I just want to fill in the shapes with the colour. And pull that ink. You don't have to be too neat about this, just as long as the colour fills the shape. And then do it for all of them as well. As you can see, I added too much on the triangle, so I'm lifting some off and then filling the rectangle with it. But obviously with acrylic ink you have to work very quickly. Okay, so once you've got your first base layer on, you can then build up the colour to create more of a shadow and sort of a tonal range. Again, I've put too much on the triangle. It's just a big space that I need to fill up. Now I'm going back to the black with my paintbrush, and I'm just going to fill in this shadow just a little around the bottom of each surface where it should be the darkest area. And I want to clean off the brush and just pull it out just a little. And don't worry if you get a bit of the colour mixed up, because that's actually quite good for shadows. Because shadows aren't always grey and black, they actually have a slight tint of whatever is casting the shadow. So as you can see, just even adding colour, you can create more depth of colour, of shadows and highlights as well. Now let's try and move on from solid shapes. So going back with the dip pen, let's just do a box. That's the most simple one. So let's show like we're looking inside of the box. So where would the shadows and contrast be? So we would actually have a line going inside, coming down, and going across, so we can see inside the box. Now the shadows would be in here, and obviously as you get closer to the back of the box, it's getting darker. On this side of the box you'll have a bit of shadow as well, like you would do here if the sun's going that way, or the light source, so to speak. And I just want to reinforce the lines of the cube with a thicker line, so I'm making the pen go a bit thicker, otherwise it gets lost a little bit in all the hatching lines. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is just add some more lines going down like this, especially towards the back, because the lid of the box would actually create a shadow as well as would also, the box itself would cast the shadow. So again, let's go in with some colour. Let's do a purple this time. this nice deep violet. Liquitex acrylic ink. Again, I know a little on the brush to fill in the, that's too much, woman, too much. And a bit of water to it, there we go. Ooh, this colour is gorgeous. Now, some of the black ink is still wet. Let's just water this bit down. Yeah, I need to wait for the black ink to dry. Alright, so I didn't exactly wait for the ink to dry. I pressed it with some paper. Because I'm running out of time. So I'm just going back in with the colour. The colour purple. Because it is a beautiful colour. And I'm going to water it down just a tad. There where we want the lightest colours. Isn't that just a beautiful purple though? Absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous, I tell you, gorgeous. So on the sides we're also going to go in, but it will be a little bit darker than the other bits of the box. And going on the insides as well. Perhaps I shouldn't have done purple because purple's quite a dark colour, so it might be difficult to see the variation in colour, but let's see how we go. So obviously it is much darker inside. And it's darker along here. And I just want to add a little bit on the shadow. And then as before when we did the shadows, just add a tiny bit of the black and then pull it out with the water. So even that, you can see it again, just layering the tones of colour up. It's not too good on the top, but that's my fault for not letting the ink dry. So how do I want to do this? So for this sort of like last exercise, we're going to create like a little bunch of buildings together. So going back with my dip pen and black ink, just going to build up sort of a horizon line, and then sort of have my perspective here. So then around here we'll start off with a box, and then expand that box out just a little. A little bit of a drunk box, but never mind. I'm slow. It's because I'm not drawing it in an angle, that's why. Then let's draw another building next to it. Then on this side, if the horizon line's there, yeah, we sort of want to pull that back a bit. That's way off on the horizon line. Ignore that line. And then inside, I'm going to have another one. And then let's do another shape here, going a bit taller. Let's make this one a little bit more interesting. So there we go, we've got some very crude sort of 3D hollow shapes. So again, going in with the shadow, sort of create shadow lines of where we know it's going to be the darkest. And it shows to the back of these buildings. I just want to reinforce these lines again. So where else would shadows be in this building? I think actually, let's just let the sun get to the building a little bit at the back. Alright, so let's add some Gilla. Just rinse off my dipper. So let's go in with the transparent sienna first. Just add. No, wait, don't do anything yet. Let it dry first. Let it dry, let it dry. Alright, again, impatient. Let's just add some colour. And the last thing I'm going to do is add wee stop your bleeding. Now, they were supposed to be little figures, but I didn't leave it to dry. Just to give some sense of scale, but gone horribly wrong, but that's okay. This is what Ink With Me is all about. It's about learning from my mistakes. So don't put black ink on top of wet one because it will spread. So that's it for this episode. I hope you learned something, and especially not what to do. Next episode, I think it will be more perspective, because I really need to brush up on my hand-drawn perspectives. Whereas in CAD or Rivet, you just press a button and it does it for you. But you need to know the basics, even just for sketching, to convey a sketch idea better. But yeah, give me a thumbs up, and if you like this video, and please subscribe if you want to see more. It does help me to grow as a channel and be able to continue making these videos. If there's anything within ink that you want me to sort of tackle or show you that you want me to focus on, I will put it into one of the episodes somewhere along the lines. So let me know in the comments below. I'm going to try and put out as many ink videos before Inktober, which, considering it's now the 1st of September, is not that long. So I think they'll definitely be the next episode without a doubt. And then maybe another one. So we'll see how many we can get going. And then I'm going to try and tackle Inktober for the first time ever. So that should be interesting to see what I create from those. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and in the meantime, happy architecting.